Hi, I'm Carrie Smith.
And I'm Emma Skipp, and welcome to
It's a Death Sentence. This is a podcast that takes a lighter look at the heavier things.
So, if you want some of this... So somebody could have been dead for a week and end up with you.
Or maybe longer, and somebody might have said, oh, there's a really bad smell.
A little bit of this.
I haven't got a tissue. I'll get one. You got one. And plenty of this.
So original. Fucking hell. Then this is the show for you. Because
Life, it's
a death sentence.
Welcome to It's a Death Sentence. Today our lovely guest is Sophie Skipp.
Hello.
Sophie, you're an extra special guest because you are not only a bereavement counsellor, but you are also Emma's sister.
I am.
Welcome,
yes,
sister.
I have that pleasure.
Oh, well.
Yes.
Thank you.
So can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Well, you've just said a lot of it, Carrie. I am a bereavement counsellor and general counsellor. So I worked in bereavement now for 5 years, inspired by, kind of having lots of counselling myself and the loss that I suffered about 10 years ago. I am also an auntie to Emma's children, and obviously a daughter still. You want me to look over there?
No, I'm just saying, what about him?
Oh yeah, and I've got an all right partner. No. I am a girlfriend to a lovely man called Pete, which is wonderful. I suppose my journey into bereavement was, just after we lost our mom 10 years ago. I did a degree in philosophy. And then I had a lot of counselling while I was doing that degree, and then I did my master's in counselling. So I kind of wanted to do for someone else what other people had done for me. So that's kind of my journey so far.
Lovely.
Amazing. Yeah. So it seems strange for me to ask you this because obviously we talk in depth regularly and use our vile humour to get through things.
That's correct.
But I was trying to reflect on this earlier and thinking, what is your first experience of death? Because it might be quite a different one to mine.
It is different, yeah.
Our very small age gap. So
9 years.
She had to out you there.
Wow. Sophie's older.
Yeah.
So what is your first experience of death that you really remember?
So that would have been our uncle, Mike. I would have been about, I'm going to say 10 years old. And I remember that he was, we were living in Whittle at the time. I was upstairs and we were waiting for a phone call about an operation he was having. And I remember waking up in the early hours of the morning and hearing Dad absolutely sobbing. And I remember that quite vividly, that sound, because I think a lot of us don't, when you're that young, you haven't seen your parents break yet, have you? So I remember that sound that Dad made. And being upstairs still and then coming down and seeing that, obviously he'd got the news that Mike had died and he was obviously broken about it. So I remember that.
It's really interesting talking about the sound. It's not something that we've discussed before, but when people are faced with that moment about hearing about losing a loved one, it's like an animalistic, quite a guttural sound,
oh my God,
isn't it?
yeah.
It's not, you can't really describe it. And it's not something that we've brought up, but actually it's quite an interesting one because it stays with you as well.
Yeah. I think it's, grief is felt on a cognitive, emotional, spiritual and physical level. It's very physical. Is visceral the right word? When it's all around you, isn't it, when it happens? It's the sounds, it's the smells, it's the feeling in your body that you get, it's the emotion. So I think that describes it quite well for my first hearing of death, if you like. Came from Dad's reaction to death.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that also answers this question really, because again, it's a strange one to ask you, but what is the first thing you think about when you think of death now? So on reflection, as an adult that works in bereavement or has worked in bereavement services and counselling, and with your own losses throughout life, what is the first thing that comes to mind for you?
That's a hard question, isn't it? What's the first thing that comes to mind about death? Ending. I think that it probably links quite closely to my beliefs about death, my personal beliefs. So yeah, the first thing that will come to my mind is the end. Yeah. So it sounds morbid. Doesn't feel morbid at all. I think I'm going to mention that.
Yeah.
Doesn't feel morbid. Might sound it to people listening, but
well, I think this is the whole point. We're trying to break down those taboos, and people. I think there's a feeling that we must feel sad and we must feel this horrendous grief all the time. Actually, if you lose somebody that's been suffering, it can be massively huge relief.
It's massively dependent on circumstances, isn't it? I think, but that would be my personal kind of go-to in my brain. Yeah.
Do you think your experiences of death and your own losses, do you think that's led you down the career path that you chose?
Yeah, definitely. I actually had a story to tell you, just a short one, because I did a bit of research about the questions before we did this. But so when we lost Mum nearly 10 years ago now, and after Mum died, I started university as a mature student. So I was young to lose Mum, I was 24, but I started uni, when I was slightly older than everyone else. And, when somebody dies, I think at any age you feel like a loner, you're isolated. Grief is extremely isolating. I think that's almost half the battle, So I was at uni as well as being a mature student, and I found that really hard because I didn't make any friends. And I was, recently bereaved. And I remember being in one lecture, so I was studying philosophy, and the teacher kind of brought up this story called The Stranger by Albert Camus. And it's all about a guy. I've just researched this now. I thought, what is that story that changed my whole thinking on death forever? And it was actually, I don't remember this, but it's about a man who loses his mom. And at the time, I didn't register that at all. Wow. So I've just researched this story that kind of changed my thinking on everything. And it's about feeling like an outsider, not being able to fit in with the social norms, with what people expect. The absurdity of life, and not being able to get to grips with that. But when we learnt about that kind of thinking and that story, that's when I sat there and I thought, that's how I feel.
And it is that. You sat on those peripherals, aren't you? You're not... I think even after some time has passed when you've lost somebody, you still feel quite alienated, especially in a group setting, or it's a bit like the sadness chaser that we spoke about before. Anything that's kind of poignant, fun... remarkable, anything like that, you're in it, and then you're kind of just slightly removed from it as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but I still feel like that now.
Yeah, I think I used to talk about it with clients a lot, and everyone describes that feeling. Like you're calling it the sadness chaser. I used to call it the kind of come down. So you're grieving and you're trying to process everything, and you're moving through this process, and then all of a sudden you'll get 10 seconds of like genuine laughter. And it'll be present, and you'll be all in that moment, and then all of a sudden the guilt comes in. Shouldn't be feeling this. How can I be feeling this when that person isn't able to feel this anymore and missed out on so much? So I think it's a really common experience.
So in your profession, you've seen this again.
Everyone
and again.
says it.
Right. It's interesting. So again, reflecting on both personally and professionally, how do you now cope with grief?
I think right from when I kind of dug into philosophy, I've stuck with my thought process on that. So I think the way I cope with grief now, so there's two ways. So emotionally, I let it out, always let it out. I write, but I'm quite comfortable with my mindset around what I believe. And that would be, it sounds a bit strange, but I think I'm very much on the fence, so I'm agnostic in all respects of life, I think. But I think that, when we die, yes, it's an end, but I also think that there's something, there is something, but it's not something I can grasp as me now in my consciousness. I can't grasp what it is, but it's something, even if it's nothing. I know it sounds confusing, but it's a concept that we can't grasp at the moment. So similar to before we were born, it's nothing, right? It's a nothingness. We don't remember it. I think I'd apply that to after we die. It's a nothingness that I can't comprehend now, but it's something. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so that was my next question for you was going to be, what do you actually think happens when we die?
So it's quite definitive for you. End
of consciousness and my body as it is now, yes, because to me it doesn't make sense to me, having not been brought up religious or with any firm beliefs. It doesn't make sense to me that I could experience life as it is now without these eyes, without this brain, without this personality, this body, you know, this kind of physicality that allows me to experience life as it is. So it doesn't make sense to me that I would experience life after death as I am now, because I stop and something else continues.
So it leads us nicely onto this, and I mean, I think I know where you're going to go with it, but it's interesting, I think, still to get an answer. You know, although you've just said you're agnostic, studied philosophy, do you have any views on heaven and hell? I mean, because despite that, we still went to Church of England schools or Catholic
Prayed
schools.
every day before lunch.
Yeah. And the question is, are you religious at all? Which we've answered. But when you think about this, you know, heaven and hell, do you think it's a useful tool for some people? So if they've got that faith, do you think it's actually something that's of use, and what's your own opinion around it?
I think it's massively useful, you know, and I think it's absolutely beautiful. I've worked with quite a variety of people of different faiths and different beliefs. Yeah,
Well,
it is.
warm.
Well, it's all of it, isn't it? It's all of it. So it's warm.
No rain.
It's not useful to me. I'll just be direct about that. It's not useful to me, but I think in terms of other people's lives and experiences, you know, you've got to imagine growing up with a religious faith that kind of cocoons your whole world, doesn't it? So it's a framework, and it's something to aim for, and like a strategy to put around the unknown. And I think humans have probably tried to do that since day dot, haven't we? You know, we've always looked up and looked for something else, and then science comes in and all the rest of it, and we stop doing that, and we try to make logical conclusions. But I think religious values and beliefs and systems can be massively useful and beautiful.
And in your line of work, I'm presuming that you deal with people from all walks of life and all different religions. So it must be quite interesting to hear their standpoint on it when dealing with grief.
Really is, yeah.
Have you ever heard any of thought, oh, quite like the sound of that?
Absolutely.
Might go for it.
I've been in states of complete envy. You know, when you listen to a person talk about how they have an understanding and almost a comfort with death, what happens next, and they, you know, someone with that firm belief that they will see a person again. You think, God.
Yeah.
You know, that's a really nice idea.
It is a nice idea.
It really is. It just doesn't. To me, it would be conflicting to go along those lines. It's a lovely idea, and I can't say whether it's right or wrong, can I? Because we don't know. But I'd also say that death creates a crisis of faith if you have one, and I think that can be almost twice as difficult for a person of like a really strong faith. You know, if they lose someone like near to them, they lose faith in what's kept them solid all their life. You know, there'll be a crisis there, which is essentially like having two losses side by side.
And have you seen that?
Yeah. I've heard people talk about, you know, falling out with God. Essentially, in my experience, what has happened is that it's made people question their faith more, research around it a bit more, and ultimately it's strengthened their faith. But there's been, you know, a dual struggle, if you like, in the process. Yeah.
And do they find it then at the end, just before?
I think that in my experience, they definitely do, and it can definitely save people and go the other way. But I think when it is in crisis, you've not only lost that person that you love, you've lost that God that's meant to keep you safe and people around you safe. So I think that must be really difficult for people.
Absolutely. So God's not for you, but do you believe in anything spiritual? So mediums, anything like that? Have you got any stories?
I mean,
you should, yeah.
We went to one woman.
Are you talking about the purple lady?
Oh yeah, there was the purple lady as well.
You go for it. I can't remember the story you were going for. So
God, we went into this one woman, and we took our rings off. We didn't give her any clues, did we? And we sat down, and you know, we did our thing, whatever that was. And she said, "I'm sensing." She did sense a woman, I think. And then she said she's really classy, all about her jewellery.
Really glamorous.
Is this, you know, and that's not Mom at all. And that's who we were after, really.
Yeah. She said she could smell her perfume. She was wearing Chanel.
Yeah.
Our mum was lucky if she got some
we
Charlie
just sat
Red
there and we were like,
Charlie.
Yeah. Not her. It's not her. I don't know who it is.
Yeah.
But wrong person, wrong audience. So didn't think much of that. But, you know, I've had other experiences where I've been absolutely moved, despite not really believing in that realm, which is conflicting. Can you share
with us a story?
Yeah, so when we emptied Mum and Dad's house, when they moved out of the house, I went into my mum's bedroom and it was empty. And I think you're riddled with guilt and throwing away things and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I was on my own in Mum's room, and I'd said out loud, I said, just do something to let me know it's all right that we're doing this. And I remember the whole room filled with light, and it was sunlight, you know, but at that moment it was absolutely incredible because it's what I needed. And I thought about it the other day, and I thought whether it is something or it isn't, I think it's all acts of nature, you know, coming in at the right time, showing us that life's absurd, it's also beautiful. So I can't sit here and profess that I believe in that realm, but in that moment, it made it okay for me.
And if it was real, would you want a message? Because I always say I wouldn't. I'd be scared.
I don't know. I mean, when Mum died, I asked her to visit me in my dreams very specifically. That was after she died. I said that to her. And she did for a year after. I had very, very vivid dreams of me and Mum having conversations about why she died. And I was always very, you know, upset and distraught, and she was always quite chill or almost aloof, like she just didn't care.
Nonchalant.
She was kind of like saying, stop, you know, being so dramatic. And I'll be like, come on, yeah. Or she'd just walk away, you know. But they were all, to me, when I'd wake up from those dreams, I felt like something was answered.
That's amazing.
So, again, whether it's real or just psychology and the brain, it doesn't really matter to me. I think what matters when you're in that absurdity is something, are you finding scraps of things that bring you feeling again
and peace
and meaning and peace,
yeah.
whether it's true or not.
So when I dreamt about her, she was just always really angry.
I was going to say she was always shouting at you.
Always really pissed off at me. What was that?
Mum didn't shout at all. I don't know what you're on about.
No, right. Really calm character. Sophie, if it was to end tomorrow, let's just say, is there anything that you would have done differently with your life, or anything you wished you'd done?
It's a good question.
It's yours, darling.
I think, you know, I would have liked to have had my own family. I think that would make me sad that didn't happen. I'd also really like to go to Bhutan.
Okay, randomly specific.
Yeah. But I did look at this question yesterday, and I thought ultimately, you know, I've got to put myself in the position of dying, haven't I, now? So...
Don't know.
Yeah, no. But I think if you go to that mindset, those things would obviously come into my mind. Maybe not Bhutan as much, might be a bit superficial. But also, you know, the things that really matter, I think, as you get older and you talk to more people that go through all these terrible things, you know, you do learn to become more present and you learn what is important, which is, you know, the people you love around you and appreciating small things and knowing that you did truly appreciate them. You know, not showing it to anyone or not showing it off, but knowing that you in your mind and your experience, you did that. So they're kind of twofold, I suppose, my answers. Yeah.
Have you ever thought about your own funeral, like what you would have? Have you got any ideas or plans?
Freddie Mercury, I Want to Break Free would be the song. I want to break free. I think I don't know, it kind of be like a see you later, you know?
Yeah. 2 fingers up.
Other than that, I think I'd want people to have, you know, a big party. Why not? I think some people don't want the fuss, do they? But I would argue that I think in our culture anyway, a funeral it's kind of like a closure. It's a part of the process.
It's more for the living.
Yeah, and it's for people to get together and lean on each other, isn't it? So
cremation or burial?
Cremation.
That was an absolute no-brainer.
Don't like the idea of a dead body in the ground. No. Really don't enjoy that at all. If I knew that Mom was buried somewhere,
that.
Yeah, no,
and I'd just be sitting in my living room, and then I think, oh God, she's there.
Yeah,
I've already had visions of Mom, like where we've scattered her ashes. I've had visions of her walking around there on her own because her ashes are there, and then I've quickly come to think, well, that's just. You know,
it's a little dose of madness.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, just a little dose of madness. But if she was buried somewhere, I think that wouldn't sit well with me at all. Not, obviously some people much prefer that idea. That's fine, but not for me. No.
I feel like it's more traditional, isn't it? That sort of
yeah.
Like now that the younger generation, they're not burying people as much. It's more cremations.
Do you think?
I think, yeah. I think more people are
also.
There's not enough room.
I was going to say, plus there's no space.
And also the biggest thing is they're cheaper. Do you know how sad that is? They're much cheaper.
Oh, I did not know that.
Much cheaper than a burial.
Okay.
Somebody's going to definitely make a comment on that, but that's how it was when we looked at it.
I mean, funerals in general are very expensive, aren't they?
Usually. And when you think about it, you're buying like a coffin
to set it on fire.
You can't die for free, can you?
Weird thing, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So, Sophie, if you could find out your day of ending, if you could find out the day you were going to die, would you want to know it?
No.
And why not?
I think I can only base it on our mom knowing. I remember being there when she got a very, very exact prognosis.
I mean, to the
like
day.
A year to the day,
It's
yeah.
ridiculous.
And it, as much as it did do us favours in terms of having a rough idea of what to expect, I think for her, I think that was dreadful. I don't think it helped.
She lived by it, didn't she? She was an absolute advocate for how prognosis is delivered. And she said, like culturally, we don't do it well. We just, it's very clinical.
Yeah.
The support comes after, maybe with palliative care and stuff, but she was very much like, you're dealing somebody a death sentence. She actually, you remember her using those words. Yeah. And she said, there will be some people who will outlive that, but they've got to want to do it and they've got to feel like there's hope. But when you're given those types of prognosis, she was very much of the opinion that some people will just live by it, and the irony being that she did.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, isn't it? I mean, I don't know how you two feel about it. Maybe for people around you, it's easier, because you've all got an idea of, wrapping your head around what's on the way. But I think for me personally, I'm not sure.
I think there's a difference in being diagnosed with something and knowing when you're going to die from that, or them saying, Sophie, you are going to die when you're 93.
Peacefully
and
in
actually
your bed.
you've still got your whole life.
Yeah.
Your health is there. They're not saying you're going to die of cancer. You're not going to die in pain. You're just going to know that you're going to die at 93.
Yeah.
Would that make you change your life? Would that make you do different things? Or
Yeah.
So there's two different sides, isn't there?
It really
I think there is the torture of knowing that, you've got a terminal illness, you're going to die. That is horrible, and I can't imagine how daunting that must be. But to have the sort of reassurance that I'm going to be here for the next 50 years, so watch out, world. Do you know what I mean? So it's one of them, isn't it, for me?
I think it's hard to base it on anything else than what I've seen. And I think you think these things, don't you? Like, you think you can know how you'd react to a certain scenario, but when it comes to it, actually it's quite the opposite. So I've said no, but maybe if I was given, bad news, I would want to know.
It was certainly the case, what you've just said, when our mum passed. So Sophie and I had the conversation beforehand, not long before I said, I'll be absolutely fine with it. When she actually dies, I'll be in the room. I'll want to stay with her and blah, blah, blah. And Sophie's like, I definitely don't want to do that. And when the moment came, I couldn't wait to get out.
Yeah.
And Sophie
told me about that. Yeah.
And it was really a total role reversal.
Yeah.
And I never went back in, and you stayed for some time. And you went back in as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I probably stayed with Mum for about, I don't know, maybe half an hour after you and Dad left. But it was like massively peaceful for me. And it was, it was a word. I was having a word. And I remember that now. That's my memory. And, I made some promises. I asked some favours from her. And I don't regret that at all. So, like you've just said, everything I've just said might be the opposite. So sorry about that. Completely useless.
Sophie, you know that while we've been doing this podcast, we're really interested in things like how people cope with grief. And obviously you're a bereavement counsellor as well as a normal counsellor. And we've been talking quite recently a lot about humour. And for our listeners, Sophie and I and Carrie all have a very dark sense of humour. And I wondered if there's anything you'd be willing to share, some of our experiences perhaps that we have, how we've made light out of something which is essentially dark and heartbreaking, because there's choices, isn't there?
Yeah.
You either stay in that darkness and that sadness and it's bloody awful all of the time, or you find a way to cope. And mine has always been humour. Carrie, I think we share that. And obviously Sophie and I, we are revolting. I'm just wondering if there's any that spring to mind.
Yeah, that are kind of appropriate as well. So I think...
Or inappropriate, darling.
Not really bothered.
well, it's just been Mother's Day, hasn't it? So I think we had a conversation just before we started this. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with asking how Mother's Day has gone when someone's lost their mom. I appreciate it. But, you know, I think I've been in situations with friends or with Emma where, oh, how's Mother's Day gone? Or what do you want to do for Mother's Day? And it's like, well, not a lot because she's dead. So can't really do a lot, can I? So I think that there's that very obvious, like calling it, owning it. This is how I actually feel, but I can say it in a way that is not riddled with like
and it's
total
also,
sadness
it's
and
the
heaviness.
other person that you're talking to. So when somebody, yes, it's right, you should ask somebody how they are, how you're feeling. You know, and 10 years has passed, so what? Still my mom, still hard. But it's just that kind of being able to have those discussions and the way in which you deal with it makes it more palatable for the other person, which is so often what most people find difficult. They don't want to talk to you about it because they're afraid of how it's going to make them feel, not how it's going to make you feel.
And you spend lots of time protecting other people. Like I think that, you know, I hear it a lot, but I think I experienced it a lot. I think after losing mom, you know, you quickly come to realise I didn't have a good experience with my work at the time. Literally, I walked back into work after mom died and it was like I had a contagious disease. Nobody spoke to me.
I think it's important for our listeners. Sophie wasn't working in bereavement at that time.
No, I wasn't, no.
And and you were also very young, you were 24.
Yeah.
So you were in a gym environment, weren't you?
Yeah, and it wasn't, you know, it was ignored. And that's damaging. I think that kind of... you know, people just being so scared of it, like you say, not just coming up to you and just being like, God, this is shit.
Or just,
you know?
yes, calling it for what it is, or giving you a hug, doing something. When we were brought up to always say or do something in a time of trauma or stress. But lots of people don't. They don't know how to handle it. They don't know how to reach out and be present for you, even if it's... I know I had a friend, I told you, that she just didn't know how to be present. So she said, I'm sorry, I don't know what to say, but I'm here, and just was there, you know. And I think... everybody's got a different way of doing it, but to be completely ignored in that, like you say, must be incredibly damaging.
Yeah, I think it is. But I think at the same time, you know, we've always been quite open, and there were I had a lot of counselling, you know. I think that really made the difference for me. And when you've processed something enough, I think you can laugh about it. You know, it's a spectrum of emotion, isn't it? Grief is not just the kind of snapshot of people crying. It's people laughing when they remember. It's people singing and remembering. It's all these types of things. So I think it's good to make use of every emotion that we've got. Yeah, because it's there for a reason, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yes.
And you two are very inappropriate most of the time.
Don't know what you mean.
Yeah. But thank you for being here today,
My pleasure.
Sophie, and talking to us. I know it's a subject that we're trying to sort of, you know, get out there a bit more and get people talking about it. So thank you very much for your time.
A great job.
Thank you, darling.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you, dear listeners. If you've enjoyed our show, then please do all the stuff that will help promote us.
Like and share our podcast and follow us on socials, and please subscribe too. If you've got any feedback, it's most welcome, so please contact us.
Likewise, if there's a subject you'd like us to cover, please do get in touch, and thank you for your support.
We are dying to talk to you.